Friends, thank you for joining me again as we take time this Holy Week to contemplate the 7 last words of Christ. Someone's last words have always been viewed as significant. What was so important that a person would spend precious energy to communicate it to others? Traditionally, Christians have used these last statements by Jesus as a way of deepening our understanding of what was and is important to the heart of God. In this session, we get to contemplate the final last statement of Jesus. It is traditionally known as a word of reunion. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Here's what Luke says. It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour, for the sun stopped shining. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. And Jesus called out with a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. When he had said this, he breathed his last. You know what I find, frankly, shocking about these verses? The fact that Jesus called out with a loud voice. Honestly, I have probably read these verses dozens of times over the years, both as a congregant in worship and a pastor studying and preaching them. But it wasn't until this time through that I took notice of this part of the event. Think about how I've started all these meditations. I did it just a moment ago. I've noted these last words are important because someone is literally using their final batch of energy to say them. And here we have Jesus effectively yelling to God that he is surrendering himself into God's hands. Literally, the last thing he did with his human body was tell God, I'm yours. It was a beautiful act of surrender and trust. He was no longer in any kind of control over what would happen next. It shouldn't surprise us that these were Jesus' last words. As the devout Jew that he was, these words from Psalm 31, into your hands I commit my spirit, were words he would have said every single evening during prayer. And I imagine at one time when he was a boy, those words must have been very comforting to him. Do you remember what it was like when you were little and you began to feel afraid of going to sleep? I myself have 4 children, and I can remember with each of them needing to work through the fears associated with worrying that you might go to sleep and never wake up again. There are feelings of sadness that you would not get to see any of your friends or your toys anymore. There was the very real anxiety that mom or dad's voice may never be heard again. And I'm sure that young Jesus had these same fears and these same anxieties. And so this prayer, I have to think, would have been something of a comfort to him. He would have been taught that there is no need to fear, for God is always with us and protecting us. Yes, it's okay to be sad, but we don't have to fear. And so when this man who had lived a full life of purpose, a life that had seen its proper and full conclusion, knew that it was his moment to die, his last words were the ones his mother and father taught him as a boy. Into your hands I commit my spirit. At that moment, he may have been sad, but I don't think he was afraid. Not like in the Garden of Gethsemane. At this moment, he knew what to do. He had essentially practiced dying every single night. Christians actually have a prayer like this too. Ours comes from a story in the Gospel of Luke. It's about a man named Simeon who had waited his whole life to see the Christ child as he had been promised that he would. And Christians for centuries have used his words as our statement of trust and surrender and nightly reunion with God. We pray, guide us waking, O Lord, and guard us sleeping, that awake we may watch with Christ and asleep rest in his peace. Jesus' final word on the cross is a powerful statement. It's a statement that, when cried out with a loud voice, says to all the Romans in earshot that it is God who will be trusted and not the empire. It's God who's Lord over all the earth and not Caesar. It's a statement of trust in the God that has led him through a good and full life. It is God who has the power over life and death. So friends, may you come to know the power of this God who was with you before the world was born and will hold you safely in love even after you die. Amen.
Guide us waking, guard us sleeping, that awake we may watch with Christ, and asleep rest in His peace. His peace. Now, O Lord, let your servant go in peace. Your word has been fulfilled. My own eyes have seen your salvation, a light to all the nations, the glory of your people everywhere. Guide us waking, and guard us sleeping, that awake we may watch with Christ, and asleep rest